often in discussion we have with clients, we can hear that, oh, we have AI, or there is AI used with this tool in the company. Again, that's very broad, and to be efficient, you need to be precise to have a use case. So you need really to ask yourself, or ask the team, or ask the tool, if you are considering to try another tool, a new tool, what use case this AI is solving.
Welcome to the State of CRM podcast. I'm Matt.
I'm Ben.
And hello. Today we are going to talk about AI specifically. And we've had some podcasts on it in the past, but we get a lot of questions around what is AI, what's the difference between AI or machine learning and deep learning, which are both subsets of AI, and what are the different applications of those as it relates to CRM in general. And we know that AI has kind of become a bit of a buzzword. It does mean something specific, but specifically within marketing, advertising, even other fields as well, it gets thrown a lot around as a marketing term. And in a way, has kind of lost its value or its meaning. So we wanted to take some time and have a little bit of a discussion today around what AI means, what some of the subsets of AI actually can and can't do, and what the real world applications are for AI, machine learning, deep learning are within CRM.
Yeah, Matt. I mean, that's a wide topic. And maybe to start jumping in the discussion, we can also start with the topic, the CRM, the targeted campaign, the campaign we are talking often and often. And when we set targeted campaign, the goal is to provide the best message for individuals, for your contacts, your consumers. But there are different ways of doing that. You can do segmentation. You can trigger, send campaign, trigger-based campaign based on their behavior, or any touchpoint or behavior on the website or in store. You can design a journey for them to lead to the purchase. And we have the capability of sending a message, pushing a communication that will be relevant to a group of people, and you need to identify the best way to do that. And all of that are different type of personalized message, and some of them are easy to build or to build automation for it, and some other needs more work, and that's where we get into the topic of segmentation and identification of audiences, and how you can do that as CRM marketers, and where the AI play or come in play for better performances.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, ultimately, the goal of all of those things that you just described, Ben, is like you mentioned, is to create relevant experiences. And with some of those, specifically within segmentation, it requires a decent amount of human intuition. And we as marketers have to use intuition a lot. But one area that it is difficult to scale and to be, accurate with when it comes to using intuition is when it relates to targeting and creating relevant experiences. And this is really the area that AI can help out with. It can help scale, and it can also help with accuracy. And I think, a really good example of that is, let's say that you're selling sundresses, potentially for an upcoming summer season. Intuitively, you might target, women 18 to 49. If it's in the wintertime, you might be targeting women in warm weather climates. If it's in the summertime, you might be broadening that category a little bit. You might even layer on triggers by identifying folks who have purchased similar products in the past and then are targeting based off of that as well. And what that does is it's definitely better than batch and blast, which we speak against a lot. Batch and blast has its place, but when it comes to creating relevant experiences, is a little bit obviously less effective. So it's definitely not incorrect to be doing that, but there are some drawbacks. For example, There are women who don't wear sundresses and never will and never have. And you're basically targeting people within that bucket that represent segments of people that are not ever going to buy that specific product. When you receive a communication for something you don't want to buy, even if it's a small touch point, basically that trains a customer to pay less attention to your communications in the future, be more likely to unsubscribe, can hurt customer lifetime value and some of those metrics that we've talked about quite a bit. The other thing that it does is it leaves untapped demand on the table. For example, for various reasons, there might be men that are looking to buy a sundress, or there might be, groups of individuals outside of those that you're targeting. If you are targeting warm weather climates in the winter, that might be going on a vacation that are looking for a sundress, or are in a buying cycle for the summer in the winter. And if you're not capturing demand in real time, you're missing out on those untapped opportunities. And just think of those as untapped demand within your CRM that you're simply just leaving on the table. And when you rely on intuition, those are two areas that you're going to either potentially create negative value or be leaving, again, like value on the table. So it's important to think about sort of the limits of human intuition as it relates to segmentation.
Yeah, and so what you explained, Matt, is, can we say that's, if you apply that, you are just siloing. You are building silo of your consumer, and because you are just picking some information to send the next communication, they might stay in this box, in this category forever, because you won't ever build cross-sell based on that's rules. That's something that is really important, I think, to mention. That's you will segment your database, but nobody will cross over another segment in the future if you just stick to that.
Yeah, 100%.
And so the thing that is interesting to talk about deep learning is that's how it works. And you mentioned that there is AI, machine learning, deep learning. What are all of these things? So AI exists for a long time now, and maybe the first type or kind of AI that exists for decades and decades is just rule-based algorithm. So based on past behavior, based on decision tree, there will be an input and an output, but just going through a decision tree, which can be defined. It can define AI. For the best, recently there was a lot of progress, and nowadays that we have better techniques to do intelligent algorithm, and machine learning is super powerful, but machine learning most likely require data, organized data, and there will be some decision made by human, setting up the model and taking some assumptions on that. And so that's subcategory, a subgroup of AI. And into the machine learning subset of practice, there is also the deep learning. And the deep learning will really, if I want to simplify that with my words, is a technique that's be very close to how our brain is working, where information are not organized. In your head, not everything is organized. Every data point, what you see, what you saw in the past, what you are talking to, who is calling you. That can everything, every context where you are living. Everything is that around you and living. Nothing is organized, and the deep learning will be able to learn, to behave or understand like the brain. Like that's a neural network, and learning from all the data points and detect patterns and detect what are the criteria, the data points that can predict intent. And something that is really important is the time frame that will be predicting intent now or in the past, but at different time in the past, and that's the most important for business, is being able to predict intents right now. So someone who had intention in the past and bought a dress 6 months ago won't receive necessarily the campaign about the dress you mentioned right now, because maybe they have no intention right now to buy the dress, and they will have back the intention in the future. And maybe some people who bought the same dress 6 months ago will have another intention right now. So the timing, really the period where the intention is detected is really important to drive your strategy or your campaigns.
Yeah. I think a couple really interesting points there. Like one, sort of around capturing demand currently. I think like thinking back on segmentation specifically, we see a lot of customers, and it's largely because of the offers that are in the space around like companies that provide segmentation, even if it is propensity-based segmentation. Marketers are using those segments for sometimes in certain cases years.
Yeah.
And to your point, like demand changes literally every single day. And I think like that's like a big pitfall in terms of using sort of out of the box segments, even if those segments are built with machine learning in place. If they're not refreshed using your latest first party data, you're getting new data every single day, new transactions, new customer attributes, web data, like all of these different things every day that tell you so much about your customer. But you as a person are not going to be able to, one, keep up with the demand, because you'd need to process so much data every single day. Or even if you've built an algorithm to do so, it's difficult to scale unless you have the right deep learning mechanism in place. So I think that's really, really interesting. And then, I think like kind of to your point around how the brain learns, I think one example that somebody gave in a presentation was looking specifically at if you wanted to identify as a human a blue Volkswagen versus, like a blue Hyundai or a blue Subaru or whatnot. Like, machine learning in an unsophisticated way might be able to tell you that all of those things are blue cars. But there's certain things that we pick up on as people: the logo, the shape of the car, the tires, all of that different stuff that we then interpret from an informational standpoint as saying, okay, well, I know that this is a blue Volvo or a blue Volkswagen or whatever, because I have the information in my brain, can process that in, to your point, Ben, in an unstructured way. And that's the type of thing that deep learning can do. It can make those inferences that aren't necessarily rule-based, and it can tell you more than, hey, well, all of these attributes just mean that this car is blue. It has tires, the blue is paint, so it must be a car that is blue. And so deep learning can go further than that and tell you specifically what it is in that case that you're looking at. And that's kind of a way to think about it. And it's a similar application to CRM as well.
Yeah. As you said, that's the deep learning will identify what are the data points that are relevant or not in the being able to predict propensity to calculate propensity score. And something that is really important is that a propensity score to a certain goal. So you need to be able to define what's the goal, that you can predict propensity to interact with your brand, to click in an email, to make a purchase, download a document, contact the customer service, whatever the goal you want to predict. That's what you will set up, saying that, okay, as a human, we'll set up and define what's the goal we want the AI, the deep learning to learn from the data to optimize toward this goal. But the rest will be made by the machine in a very, very wide, vast amount of data, because something that's, as human, we can't process. We can't select hundreds of data points or thousands of data points, looking at them all together across all the user and say, okay, this is the pattern that will work. We need to compute all of that and make the learning working. Something else I want to highlight is the fact that older methodologies can be efficient at a given time. If there is an action right now, I'm doing something that will trigger a decision tree and we can get an output. But such a few parts of your consumer or individuals are coming back to your store, to your websites, interact with your brand every single day. Your consumer are not interacting with your brand every single day. So they are not leaving a data point, a fresh data point, every single day to be interpreted by the machine. And so the power of the deep learning is being able to look at all the data in the time frame. So with the historical data, but based on their time. And it's, again, that's not because I bought a product 6 months ago and someone else bought the same product 1 week ago, that will have the same weight or the same impact in the learning. And that is key to be able to predict or to score a propensity to purchase something right now or to click on a message right now, depending on the goal. I'm saying purchase because in most of the cases, the revenue is the goal, but that can be anything else.
Yeah, 100%. And I think like, when you're thinking about, like understanding the impact and is this a good AI or bad AI? There's a couple like broad things you can think about. And you kind of started to hit on some of those, Ben. One is this efficient? Meaning within a given time frame, not months and months and months or a year, a reasonable time frame that you as marketers, which is short, need to work within. So like literally, again, demand in real time nearly every day. Is it able to generate good results? And those results being things that you want, like, again, clicks, purchases, website visits, engagement, whatever it is that you're looking to optimize towards. And it should, to your point, Ben, be able to optimize towards any of those within an efficient time manner. So like that's something to consider. And the other is just like practicality. Is this something that you can apply to your real world business? Is it something that's sort of, pie in the sky, or can you turn it on tomorrow and start generating real results, real metrics that matter to you? And that could be, again, some of those KPIs that we talked about, but it could also be indirect metrics that are things like better customer satisfaction, lower unsubscribes, things like that are the result of creating that relevancy. So it's really important to think about, there's a lot of really interesting AI out there, I think, within marketing and obviously beyond as well. But it's important to ask questions around like how scalable and applicable is this to my business today? And is it something that's efficient enough for me to start generating results and using in the short term?
Yeah. And I mean, with all that description, I hope that we helped a little bit to clarify different things about AI. But if I would summarize also all of that if you define a goal, we discussed and mentioned some different techniques within the AI space. That's just remind me the fact that often in discussion we have with clients, we can hear that, we have AI, or there is AI used with this tool in the company. Again, that's very broad, and to be efficient, you need to be precise to have a use case. So you need really to ask yourself, or ask the team, or ask the tool, if you are considering to try another tool, a new tool, what use case this AI is solving. And so in the situation, the case of the CRM, there are things that we want to optimize, to be able to predict. And so you would like to maybe use an AI system that will help to manage fatigue, to calculate propensity to react to messages based on the number of messages during a given week. And that's across channels. So how do we manage the fatigue across channel with a calculation of propensity for each of the channel? That's a goal and a capacity, a use case that can't be made by an AI who is able to do a broad learning and with no specific goal. That's something that is really important to understand. I mean, I'm looking at my notes. That's other use cases that are really interesting in CRM that can be identifying untapped demand, as you mentioned, Matt. That in your example, how do I find people with propensity for a product that's never bought in this category or the same product in the past? And that's a specific goal that you can set up the AI for. And that's, again, something that you need to keep in mind in your list of use cases when you evaluate tools or gets the reply, oh, we already have UI. We already have AI internally, and you should use the tool we have. Okay, but that solve my use case, the use case I need to achieve tomorrow, next week in my strategy.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, like, kind of to add to that list of real world use cases, I think one thing that's a big challenge for marketers when they're launching a new product, for example, is there's no data on that product. They don't know who has purchased it in the past. They have no transactional data to be able to sort of look back at and say, okay, well, these are the types of people that are purchasing, and they don't have triggers yet. So even if you are using trigger-based segmentation, which obviously we don't recommend using all the time, there's no ability to do that. So the only alternative that marketers have is, one, to use intuition completely. So that would be literally, going back to the sundress example, if I'm launching a brand new line of sundresses, the only thing I would be able to do at that point would be able to say, I'm going to make some assumptions about who's buying this and I'm going to target them. But that is also something AI can help with through something called transfer learning, where basically the AI is able to identify different attributes from potentially other products that might predict or will predict intent for a brand new product based on what the AI can learn about products with similar attributes. And not just one, but learning from several different products, identifying the attributes that are most likely to predict intent for this new product. And therefore you can go out with your targeting and your marketing with a really big advantage in terms of being able to already be sending optimized campaigns, even though you have no data on it. And that's something as well that I think is really, really interesting from an AI perspective. And there's really no other way for you to be able to do that.
No, and this way you are providing a real customer-centric experience for individuals, meaning that when you launch your product, you will reach out to people with propensity to purchase the product, and you won't reach out to people who has no interest. Yeah. Instead of blasting or having a portion of your manual segment contacting people with no interest for the product, which will impact the affinity, the relationship with the brand.
100%.
I think that was the idea of bringing a summary or some input, insights on what are the different aspects of the AI and especially focus on the deep learning. I hope you enjoyed that. If you have questions, as always, don't hesitate to let us know in the comments, contacting us in private messages on LinkedIn, no problem. We'll touch base on another topic next week.
Yeah, 100%. This is definitely a topic that's one of my favorites. So it's fun having a conversation about it today. And looking forward to talking about it more. And if there's kind of to Ben's point, if there's anything specific that you want to hear more about as it relates to AI and its application to CRM or even beyond, by all means, let us know, and we can definitely bake in some content in the future that addresses that. So I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did today.
Have a good week.
Have a great week.